So as you can see by my research, I really love the state of Utah. And in this video, I want to focus on the Anasazi when they were living in southern Utah. There's evidence of them having lived here for at least 10,000 years, but their disappearance happened in just over 50. So what happened in those 50 years that was different from anything they had ever experienced or encountered in the previous 10,000? What changed during that short time that made the Anasazi suddenly move from mesa tops to dangerous high-hanging cliff dwellings just before their disappearance? I'm Jenna Bosiger, and you're watching my Cryptid Cryptids YouTube channel. And if you also have an interest in cryptids from the BC, then please hit the like for this video and don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. I really do appreciate it. I'm going to continue referring to them as the Anasazi. I didn't start off feeling that way. As I was making the video, I realized I had to make a separate video about the name change. I'm going to call them the Anasazi and not the new name of Ancestral Puebloan. But not just for the fact that it's long-winded. And basically, in this video, I'm focusing on two areas that the Anasazi occupied. Hovenweep and this other area, basically parallel to Hovenweep, but to the west. And it starts up at the top here with Butler Wash. And then there was Cowboy Wash. This is an area that I'm really interested in and that I really wanted to learn about. But I'm researching it and it keeps saying that it's in Colorado. But on Google Maps, you can't find any place called Cowboy Wash in Colorado, but you can find a place called Cowboy Wash in Utah next to the border of Colorado. And what I think is going on is that Cowboy Wash extends into Colorado, and I'm going to try to figure out exactly where it is, but I'm going to save that for the video that I do on Colorado. What is that thing? Well, this is by Cowboy Wash. Lion's Mouth Cave. This place has some really amazing pictographs. This one doesn't really look like your average bird. It looks like a man bird. And the Birdman motif is very popular with the mound builders. Then here's some more. And all of these creatures look very wolfman, wolfy to me. There's ears, there's tails, and I also see the bear prints, but I still think that these figures resemble wolfman type creatures. Like you can really see the tail here. And then there's this one of what looks like a rocket. I mean, it looks like a rocket ship, doesn't it? It's pretty interesting. And then there's a lot of dinosaur sites and a lot of big cave systems in the southwest corner. And then moving along from there, the Red Cliff Anasazi, I didn't really study much of this. But then there's the Coral Pink Sand Dunes State Park. And if you can just imagine camping out at this location and watching the sun from the morning rise to the sunset to the afternoon light, all the color changes that you would see. And that's along the southern border of Arizona. The Wave is in Utah. And this place, I think you need to have permission to get to see this site, the different light changes that you get. You've got Bryce Canyon. There's a lot of cryptid reports there, but it's a very large wilderness area, so I would think seeing cryptids there would be quite difficult. There's Lake Powell, which extends into Glen Canyon and up into Anasazi Canyon, and as you can imagine, that's just got to be probably some of the most beautiful scenery on the planet. And there are ruins up in, the cliffs in this location as well. Love seeing water in the desert like that. It's amazing. But that's not really the area that I studied either. The area that I studied is to the east of that. But before I get there, I've got to mention Valley of the Gods. Valley of the Gods is in southern Utah, and a place called Dark Angel is actually a single monolith rock formation. This other area called Devil's Garden and Dark Angel are in Moab and the Arches Wilderness area. There's just this other place in northern Utah, and it is called Devil's Slide. And I've never seen anything like this before. I mean, this is enough to make you want to be an earth scientist just so you could learn what happened here and why is it like this. This is just so weird. I just don't know how this was formed, and I wish I did. It's in northern Utah, somewhere near Salt Lake City, and it would definitely be worth seeing. So now I'm going to get into the Anasazi and to these two places pretty close to each other, you know, the Butler, I'll call them the Butler Wash Group, and then Hovenweep. I did a lot of research, and you would think that the more research you do, that the more facts you learn. But that wasn't really the case. I mean, I learned a lot, but facts, they were already hard to find, and now I feel like they're getting very muddied up with non-facts. But one of the numbers that remains generally pretty consistent is the number in the date 1300 AD. And that is said to be the date when at least the Navajo fully arrived to New Mexico. The Utes may have come a little bit later, but there's a lot of information given out about the Anasazi that contradicts. I'm going to question that. I'm going to question those contradictions. Hovenweep is the name of the Anasazi ruins in southern Utah near the Colorado border. I learned that Hovenweep is a Ute word that means deserted valley. These names are important clues, and they shouldn't be changed. The clue here is in the word deserted, because that word implies that whoever used to live in this valley have given up on living here anymore. It has been deserted, which means it was inhabited before that. And when you use the word deserted to describe a valley, it implies that you don't know where the inhabitants went or why. Like, it disassociates you as being part of that group that deserted the place. So more likely, the Utes were describing what they once saw as inhabited and now see as deserted. Hence the name Deserted Valley. So there must have been a great exodus out of this valley by the inhabitants, the occupants. So I started by looking up dates, the timeline for the Hovenweep, and I used Wikipedia to get a mainstream view of the timeline. But remember, Wikipedia technically is not an acceptable reference. That being said, the magnificent stone architecture, which are now in ruins, have only had a short period of occupation from 1150 to 1300. And it says that Hovenweep National Monument is largely known for the 6 groups of Anasazi villages. And then it says there's evidence of occupation by hunter-gatherers from 8000 to 6000 BC. And then it says that about 200 AD was the start of Anasazi building structures, open and exposed and often on the tops of mesas. And then all of that changed around 1150 when they started moving and building and living in these heads of canyons, in these dangerous, high-hanging, hidden cliff dwellings. So think about that. 10,000 years go by, and suddenly something happened that made them feel safer in dangerous, hidden, high cliff dwellings than where they were living before, out in the open. The date that the Native Americans arrived around 1300, if you give and take from that date, as much as you want to give and take, it's not going to take you all the way back to 10,000 years. They arrived probably around 1150 to 1300. That matches up with the time when the Anasazi started building these high-hanging cliff dwellings out of fear, and then eventually disappeared. In the 1300s, the exact same date given that the Native Americans have fully arrived is the same date that the Anasazi, who had been living for 10,000 years, suddenly, in less than 100, just over 50, disappeared, deserted their homes. But then it goes on to say things that I don't like, because they're always trying to fit everyone into this one graph, simplistic graph, evolutionary graph, showing how humans with low IQs progressed into humans with high IQs. One species. And they use the words transitioning and transforming. They're going to now try to say that the archaic turned into the Anasazi, who turned into the Paleo, who turned into the Puebloan. One species, one race, and they're going to use this graph, which is very DNA got in the way of this, because they would like you to believe that Neanderthal and Denisovans and all of these other non-human hominids were just underdeveloped humans, and given time they would evolve into humans, transforming, transitioning. That is what they're pushing big time. 10,000 years ago, there were many different types of hominids. There were many different types of levels of intelligence and definitions for intelligence. And that would include definitions for what it means to be savage, barbaric, and primitive. Those are the names that academics used to describe everyone below this evolutionary line. And it's very born out of that. This is one interpretation, one translation of some of these petroglyphs. And if you think about what the direction that I'm going, I'm thinking about how I need to translate these petroglyphs. I need to translate them from pictures to words. And the way I'm thinking, I need to translate them from the mind of these hominids who felt that they were under attack by the arrival of these, new humans. And I don't think they had ever experienced the type of violence, the strategic warriors who don't stop until every last one. I don't think they had experienced anything like that in the 10,000 years they have been living in this location in southern Utah. It says the hunter-gatherers from 10,000 years before present hunted in difficult terrain, traversed deep canyon areas of few animals, limited vegetation, and managed limited access to water, which made life difficult and limited the size of their groups. Okay. Next paragraph. Artifacts were found of both Paleo Indians and archaic people along the Cajon Mesa of Hovenweep as early as 8000 BC, and at 20 sites with evidence from people of about 6000 BC. So, were they living in one location in groups for 10,000 years? Or were they splintered off in little teeny groups just scattered around like trying to survive? Which one was it? Or were they two different people? Were they two different groups of people? They just want to make it all that one line. Transformers. It also goes on to say that around 900, the number of Hovenweep residential sites increased, and that this happened at all the sites in Mesa Verde, in Canyon de Chalet, and then at about 1100, the Hovenweep village communities moved from the mesa tops to the heads of canyons. But then, according to npa.gov and the Wikipedia as well, it says that there were 2,500 people living in Hovenweep from 1200 to 1300. That was the year that they went completely disappeared. So let's think about the demise. So it happens when 2,500 people are living there. That does not sound like gradual starvation or, lack of water or disease or something like that. That wasn't, gradual people dying off and hardly any left. No, there was a lot of them grouped together, probably safety in numbers, and then they ended. However, think about this. We don't find 2,500 dead Anasazi in Hovenweep. We find it deserted. And if you think about it, these cave and cliff dwellings are so well constructed, so defensively built, and holding entire populations of men, women, and children. You would think that in these high-hanging cliff and cave dwellings that they would have had some secret entrances and escape routes to an underground. And at these sites, a lot of them show that they left all their stuff behind suddenly when they abandoned the place. Some of the sites show murder Anasazi, but they'll only show like 7, maybe 20, up to 20. So what happened to the other? Were these the ones that fought them off long enough for the rest of them to escape? I mean, how do you escape from a high-hanging cliff dwelling in a hurry when you got an entire village? According to these petroglyphs, they did flee. There was an exodus. And this title of this petroglyph may be called procession, but that's not what it looks like to me. This also means that at places like Skinwalker Ranch and some of these other ruins that the Navajo and the Ute consider to be haunted or cursed, and the reason is because there are still Anasazi living there, and they've been hiding from humans since 1300 AD, their disappearance. And the fact that the Navajo and the Ute try to warn people against visiting and consider, these negative, bad, haunted, cursed ruins sounds to me like bad blood, like a history of bad blood. I don't think they had ever encountered a species that used tools for traps, not for food. So down at the bottom of the Butler Wash ruins are these petroglyph panels. One of them is called the Wolfman panel, and I saw the wolf eyes right away because they just look like wolf eyes, and this looks like wolves. So a lot of these creatures do resemble wolves. They have tails. This one right here, though, doesn't look like anything like a wolf man cryptid to me. This one looks like a human because I don't see the knobby knees. I don't see, he's got a neck. I don't see the ears. I don't see the tail. I don't see the tiny waist. I don't see, this just looks like a human. This one is from Cedar Mesa, and it looks like this baby little one, cryptid, is caught in a trap. I see traps. I see these kachinas who were the Anasazi. I feel like they're trying to get everyone out, summoning everybody. Come on, let's go. We got to move out. You know, we got to hide. We got to run and hide. It was an exodus. They deserted. And these petroglyphs show that. These petroglyphs show them deserting the valley, just like the Ute say. So these petroglyphs, there's Butler Wash, House on Fire, Mule Canyon, and then coming down is Monarch Cave. And then the procession petroglyph panel is right here that this map shows, which is where I learned about it. And then over in the corners here, you've got Grand Gulch and Cedar Mesa. And those are the Sand Island petroglyphs, the Kachina panel petroglyph. And all of these are located basically in the same vicinity. And so I was really trying to study the petroglyphs for each of these locations and trying to see what was going on right here. And what it looks like to me is that they were chased out of their homes and went into hiding. The Kachinas, the Anasazi, and all the other species that they represent, they've been hiding from humans since the 1300s. That's the official date that they just all disappeared. It was life or death. They were no match. The way we use, it's an unfair advantage. It's the definition of a invasive species, actually. But that's another topic. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed this video about southern Utah and the Anasazi. I knew it was going to be a lot and that it might be controversial. And I think hopefully I'll get some more answers when I sum up the last of the four corners when I do Colorado, which I'm really excited about because that's where Mesa Verde is, Cowboy Wash, and who knows what else I'm going to find. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope you like this video. And if you do, don't forget to hit the like, and please subscribe to my YouTube channel. I really do appreciate it. Until next time, bye.